So, today we're diving into a story about survival, about an ancient tree really on the edge. But the fix, well, it's not at all what you'd expect. It involves a scientific twist that might just change how we think about farming on a hotter, drier planet.
You've got to understand, at its core, this is a rescue mission. We're talking about the olive tree, a symbol of life in the Mediterranean for thousands of years, and it's facing a crisis that could wipe it out in some of its oldest homes.
And the solution is where it gets really wild. It involves turning stuff nobody wants into agricultural gold and uncovering a totally counterintuitive secret that was hiding right there in the soil the whole time. Okay, so let's set the scene. We're heading to the sun-baked coastal plain of southern Tunisia. It's a tough landscape, defined by how dry it is, a place where life has always been a bit of a struggle. See, here, the olive tree isn't just a plant. It's the whole economy. For so many small-scale farmers, it's their entire livelihood, their heritage. And that future is literally drying up as olive production just keeps dropping, year after year. So these trees are fighting a war on two fronts. First, you've got climate change, less rain, hotter temperatures, which just bakes the ground and sucks the moisture right out. And then you have the traditional farming practice of tillage, plowing the soil, which was always supposed to help save water. Now, for generations, farmers believed plowing was the right thing to do. But it turns out over time, it was creating this massive, unseen problem. A hard, compacted layer of soil just under the surface. They call it a plow pan. And this thing acts like a concrete barrier. So when the rains finally do come, the water just gets stuck at the top where it evaporates almost immediately in the hot sun. It never gets down to the tree's roots where it's needed.
So, the old ways were actually making things worse. Researchers knew they had to get creative. They understood the soil desperately needed organic matter to heal, but that led to a really big question. How do you make rich, healthy compost in a place that by its very nature doesn't really have a lot of leftover plant stuff? There aren't any corn stalks or grass clippings to use. Well, the answer, it turns out, was hiding in plain sight.
Okay, get ready for this recipe because it's not what you think. They got really clever. They took seaweed that was washing up on tourist beaches, the stuff the hotels hate. They used the waste pulp for making olive oil. They got scraps from fish canneries. And finally, they threw in the pruned branches from the olive trees themselves.
Think about that for a second. Every single ingredient was something that was previously considered garbage. And by mixing them all together, they created this incredibly powerful compost, perfectly designed for the local area. It's a real-life trash-to-treasure story.
So, they had their agricultural gold, but the big question was, does it actually work? It was time to find out. They set up a really simple 2-year experiment in a young olive grove. They basically split the trees into 2 groups. The control group got the usual treatment, the standard plowing. The other group, the amended trees, got a big dose, 180 kilograms, of this new compost buried in the soil around each tree. And then they just waited, and they measured.
So, 2 years later, did it do anything? Was there any real difference for these struggling trees? Oh yeah, the results were pretty amazing.
First thing, they looked at the health of the trees themselves. And the trees that got the compost showed a 15% boost in branch growth compared to the others. So they were just visibly healthier, stronger, and doing a lot better in that harsh climate.
But look, healthier trees are great, but what about the olives? That's the part that really matters for the farmer's income. And here, the result was just incredible. The olives from the compost-treated trees were a whopping 40% heavier. That is a game changer. But the really weird part? Nobody could figure out why it was working.
And this is where the story takes a really fascinating turn. The scientists just assumed the compost was acting like a big sponge, holding more water near the surface. But when they measured, that wasn't it. The top layer of soil, that top 20 centimeters, had about the same amount of water in both groups. The compost was working miracles, just not in the way anyone thought. So this mystery sent them digging, literally. If the magic wasn't happening at the surface, something else had to be going on deeper down. They were about to find the soil's secret weapon. And this chart just lays the whole puzzle out for us. Look at the top 2 bars, the surface soil. Almost no difference, right? But then look at the third bar. That's way down, 70 centimeters deep. The soil with the compost was holding 65% more water. So somehow, this stuff was getting water deep underground and keeping it there. To understand how, we've got to learn a new word.
The word is hydrophobicity. Sounds fancy, but it just means water-fearing. And you see it all the time. You know how water beads up on a rain jacket or a freshly waxed car? That surface is hydrophobic. It's repelling the water. Well, the researchers figured it out. As their special compost, which was full of oils and fats from the olive and fish waste, broke down, it made the top layer of soil hydrophobic. It basically created a water-repellent lid just under the surface.
And here's why that is so brilliant. This hydrophobic lid stopped a process called capillary action. That's the natural way water gets pulled upwards through tiny gaps in the soil, kind of like a paper towel sucking up a spill. By stopping that upward pull, the lid basically trapped the rainwater deep underground, shielding it from the intense sun. It created a hidden reservoir of water right where the tree's roots could get to.
So you can see, this discovery is so much bigger than just one olive grove. It offers a totally new playbook for farmers in dry regions all over the world.
I mean, what we have here is a blueprint for real sustainability. It's a system that turns local garbage into a precious resource. It builds healthy soil without chemical fertilizers. It makes every single drop of rain count for more. And the bottom line, it boosts crop yields, even as the climate gets tougher. It's a win-win-win.
And it leaves us with this one last mind-bending thought. For hundreds of years, we've tried to fight drought by making soil absorb more water. But maybe, just maybe, in some of the driest places on Earth, the real secret isn't about holding on to water. It's about pushing it away to keep it safe and hidden, deep underground.